Hello, this is Greg Allison from Green Greg's and Galactic Greg's coming to you in the wee hours of the 9th of December 2020 to bring you a very disturbing report. We know that the solar minimum has ended, that we're coming back into the next cycle, cycle 25 of a solar maximum. A lot of people were expecting this to be a weaker maximum, but there is a report out by a team led by the National Center for Atmospheric Research. A team of scientists are now reporting if they're expecting this next solar cycle may be the strongest one since records began. So, my friends, this is about the sun. What we're worried about is as our magnetosphere, the Earth's protective shield, is rapidly decreasing right now. And some people think that's tied to grand solar minimum. No, it's been occurring over a span of since the 1700s. Ever since we've been measuring, the Earth's magnetic field has been dropping continuously, and it's now accelerating. But even weak solar storms are now a threat to our power grid. So this is very much about the sun. So just bear in mind that we're going to be talking about how this can affect our power grid, what it can do to us, and how much more vulnerable we are, and how vulnerable we are in ways that you do not expect. So we're going to get all into this. I'm going to talk about the increased threat, with the sun, even if the sun does not go into their predicted maximum, we're going to talk about the physics of their prediction, and we're going to talk about some of our key vulnerabilities, like our nuclear power plants in specific. That's the one thing that I'm most concerned about, because a lot of us say, "Oh, Greg, I live off grid. I don't have a problem." It's not a problem. I don't care if I don't have power. Oh, yes, you do. You will when you hear this report. So you've got to pay attention. And I've got test reports. I'm going to show you test data for test of these Zircalloy alloy spent fuel rods and how they burn on contact with air. So I'm not even talking about the reactors, which everybody else worries about. We're going to ignore that. We're going to talk about what everybody don't think about too much. So, with all this in mind, so let me tell you about this story. So what happened is these 25 scientists, doctors Scott W. McIntosh, Sandra Chapman, Robert J. Lemon, Ricky Edgelin, and Nicholas W. Watkins. They performed these models, and what they found is that they've outlined this 22-year solar cycle in which the magnetic fields start near the poles and they come down over time and they meet. But what happens is, while one set is coming down, another set's coming down too, of opposite charge. While this set, the first set is coming down, is being met by an opposite charge coming. So everybody thinks of these two is coming around, and they think that's a cycle. Then another two comes, but actually, while these are coming down, the others already appear and start coming down. And they are part of the total 22-year Hale cycle found by this individual astronomer named Hale. And what a lot of people haven't realized in the past is we can now see these from these bright spots in the corona that there's some really bright charged spots where you're very high and ultraviolet. And they've not been watched because the solar spots don't coincide with them until they get lower in altitude, and that's when they start showing. But these spots can be seen early on. So McIntosh's team has been watching this, and are able to flag more accurately the terminator points in the 22-year cycle of these events. And based on the cycle lengths, they're able to determine what's really going on. So what they're saying is this: they're saying that sometimes when these bands are coming together, these oppositely charged magnetic fields, that they slow down sometimes. And when they slow down, they start interfering with the next band that's coming down. They start overlapping. And that overlap is what disturbs the sunspot cycle and causes periods of less sunspots. And their slowness also increases, makes their period longer. And so this next band comes out, there's just nothing happening. So, but if you get a short band, then what happens is you have less interference for the next band, and you can expect a stronger sunspot cycle. That's what they're claiming. And their claims fly in the face of a lot of predictions. I'm going to show that this 22-year cycle, and the what's believed to be the 400-year cycle of the grand solar minimum, and some of the other work, which I'm going to show you some of the other projections for what it means. And I'll show you some other graphs. But I just thought, you know, I needed a sphere to kind of show you the bands, and I'll show it to you graphically earlier. I just thought it was also kind of neat to be able to show you with a flashlight, if you would, the kind of sun effect. So, gotta have a little fun with the sun, if you don't mind the pun, before we get cooked in our bun. All right, so this is really serious stuff, and I'm going to show you a picture. Give me a second. I'm going to do a share here, and I'm going to show you kind of a depiction of what this looks like moving forward. I'm going to share screen. Oh, before I do this, I do want to mention, my friends, that, yeah, here we go. I'll just do this first. Here we are. Here are the bands. As you can see, there's a band here. There's already another band started here. If you watch my cursor, you see this band starts down, that and starts. This starts down, that and starts up there. And there's also corresponding polar bands up here. And furthermore, as these bands are moving, they're showing you like this is cycle 23, this is cycle 24. Well, cycle 23 was really long and interfered with cycle 24. So the actual terminator would be right about here, and again right about here, which it shows right there. And so we're already starting to the next solar cycle. So they have a way of looking at this. So you can see where the sunspots start. They don't start at the high altitudes. They start a little bit further down. But the activity they're able to watch is up here. And you can see this is the polar corresponding bands in this region. So you can see what's going on here with the sun as it's mapped out. All these dark spots are the sunspots. This is solar cycle 23. You can see solar cycle 24 has less spots right here. And you can, and this is where we'd start out over here. Well, I'm going to show you something in a paper in a minute where you can see the length of these cycles and how they think that plays into it, and why they think this next cycle will be greater. I'm not going to go greatly into the physics of what they're showing here, but I will remind you, my friends, if this next cycle goes stronger, we've got a lot to be concerned about. And it's coming out with a bang already. We're already getting, this cycle is early on, we're already getting lots of flares. So they may be on to something. And because they may be on to something, we've got to worry really about loss of our power grid from the solar coronal mass ejection. And so with that in mind, my friends, I just want to remind you that I have a special going right now for long-term food storage, 25 years. Knocking stuff in the house here. Go to prepwithgreg.com for 25-year long-term food storage, $100 off, and right now it's a really low price, the bottom price. Now that may go up, but it will still be $100 off. You get 2,000 calories per day, 284 servings, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Get this at this price, you're going to be a winner. And this is real food. It's not freeze-dried stuff. I mean, it's freeze-dried. It's not MREs, but it makes for real meals. And hey, 25-year storage, easy to carry. You can put it in these little pouch, break out this box and get these little pouches out and put them in your backpacks and bug out. And you can get other survival supplies as needed from prepwithgreg.com. Again, go to prepwithgreg.com, and it takes you to all these different survival items, water filtration, air filtration, on and on and on and on. And I won't stay with us too long. Just remember, prepwithgreg.com. The links are below in my channel notes and also in my pinned comment sections. So let's go forward. Here's what's predicted for solar cycle 25. As I mentioned, the predictions vary. As y'all may, some of you are quite aware of Miss Valentina Zakharova. I can't pronounce her name right now. She, of course, predicted a lower cycle, and she had some predictions that led us to think we were coming into a grand solar minimum. Although she kind of refuted that later. and kind of went against the budding community she was bringing up. But she was predicting that cycle 25 would be actually 80% as strong as cycle 24, much weaker. And it turns out that NASA was actually predicting, from a prediction made later than hers by quite a bit here, just from this last summer, that it would actually be 30 to 50% lower, which goes quite a bit against this other theory. Here, hang on, I'll show you the paper. If here's the paper that was published by the scientists of overlapping magnetic activity cycles and sunspot numbers. As you can see, the principles here, the writers, and it goes into the cycles. Now this chart here is really interesting because this is the one you can actually see the lengths of these cycles. You can see our last cycle was a very long length. Well, the previous cycle, the one that they claim, this one suppressed the one that we just got over. So this would have been cycle 23. Because of its length, it was interfering, according to them, with cycle 24. It made cycle 24 very weak. Cycle 24 has been exceedingly short compared to all these others. If you look through here, these apparently they're not really marking that. But because of this shortness, they are predicting that we're going to have a much bigger cycle here. Now this goes into a whole lot more analysis in here. And you can see the length of this cycle versus the length of that one, quite a bit different. They're showing you the terminators there, quite a bit of difference where the terminating point, starting with that began and this one and this one. And you can read in here that they talk about how they projected this stuff over several years. Various mathematical transforms, the Hilbert transform. If you want anyone to go through the mathematics, determination of terminator dates and the results that they've come up with. All the analysis that they have done is here. They believe that they're spot on with their projections. Again, here's another monthly suns. See, these dots up here represent how many sunspots have been seen within each month of these years. That's what each one of these dots represents a month as you go this way in time. Every dot is a month. Quite a few over here, wasn't they? Back when I was a little twat. So they go quite into that. Now, what I would be concerned about is this. As I said before, well, let's look here. Just give you a picture here. This is an active sun. This is a quiescent sun. This is in the peak of a solar cycle, and this is in a minimum. You know, we had a lot of big solar holes. I used to not hear about those things when I was a kid. Just kind of an interesting thing, all these big coronal holes they talk about now. They stream out a lot of solar wind, which also can cause aurora activities. It's quite a bit interesting. And this also is a NASA site that it predicts the solar EMP, or coronal mass ejections, CMEs. And it talks about, let's see, somewhere in here is that number that I have referred to often before, where they're saying that the projection is on the order of 12% per decade. Let me see if I can find it there. 12% per decade of a Carrington scale event. Well, my friends, we don't need a Carrington scale event to wipe us out. There it is. There it is right there. This is, you analyze records for solar storms going back 50 years by extrapolating the frequency of ordinary storms to the extreme. You calculate the odds of a Carrington scale storm would hit the Earth in the next 10 years. It basically did pretty decade. 12%. 12% per decade. And, you know, as they say here, this is a sobering number. Because, you know, just start adding 12% up. You don't have to get long. You don't have to make a century to get to 100%. But Greg, we haven't had a Carrington event since 1859. It's been well over 100 years. Very true, very true. But we had the railroad event, which occurred much sooner. It occurred in 1921 after the 1859 event. We've been farther from the railroad event than that. Hang on, I'm going to show you some charts on this. I'm going to stop this share, and we're going to switch over before we get to the fast facts. Hello. Halo. Let's do another share here. We are going to go to PowerPoint file of mine. And I'm going to switch it up to charts. 16. Bam. Here we go. Here's what we're looking at. The Carrington event took place in September of 1859. Started fires in telegraph stations. Miners in Colorado woke up early, well before sunrise, because they thought the sun was about to come up from all the light that they were getting from the aurora. People were said to be able to read newspapers from the aurora, and you could see it down in the Caribbean. It was very, very strong. Like I said, it caused fires in telegraph stations. They said wires burned. And so if you go forward from just 62 years later, just 62 years later, we had the railroad event. It was only a tenth as strong as the Carrington event, according to some. And it actually caused some fires and power lines and railroad stations. It was picked up, by the rail lines. See, these longer frequency waveforms come out of a coronal mass ejection are picked up by power lines, pipelines, and rail lines, long conductors. And it comes up through the ground. So what you get is, it has now been, 99 years, over 99 years since this event. And the 12% is based on this event. But we did have the Hydro-Quebec event in 1989, which is thought to be 100th as strong as the Carrington event and a 10th as strong as a railroad event. But it caused that blackout in 1989 in Quebec. Of course, as you get further north, the power lines are more susceptible. That was a north-south running line, so it was along the field lines. But hey, we had a huge near miss. There was a Carrington scale coronal mass ejection in 2012. And you may say, well, Greg, that was it. That was our hit. No, actually, the prediction is based on Earth being hit, because the sun is always throwing these things out. Not always, but the sun periodically throws these things out in various places. The probability was based on one actually hitting us, which is totally a probabilistic event. It doesn't mean it's going to absolutely happen within so many years. It just means that's what the probability is. But probability has a lot of slop in it. It means you could get them closer together or farther apart. As it turns out, it's believed have been far stronger events than even the Carrington event. The Charlemagne event in like near 710 was thought to be exceedingly strong, and there have been evidence in ice cores, potentially other ones that's stronger than that. So we have had very, very strong solar coronal mass ejections, and these things can totally wipe out civilization. And we're going to go into that in a little bit, but as we know, what this could do, an event like the Carrington scale event is believed it would take out all of our power grid. Many people say the railroad event would, but Greg, we had a power grid then. Well, no, it was not all connected like it is now. We didn't have the high voltage transformers that we have now, which are the vulnerable components, and we didn't have all the modern electronics in our system then either. It just so happens Earth's protective layer, our magnetic sphere, is dropping in field strength rapidly. So our shields are falling down. And this happens to be occurring as we may be in a period where the sun's activity is going to be kicking up. And even in a grand solar minimum, you can still get a Carrington scale event. Even if we are coming up into a grand solar minimum, even in a regular solar minimum, you can get a major solar flare with a coronal mass ejection. So We're out of the woods, even if we're going into decreased solar activity, especially now that Earth's shills are going down. But holy smoke, if these guys, if McIntosh is right, we are, yeah, we're in a pickle. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but my friends, the probability is getting way too high, way too high. It may mean these next few years may be catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. And I'll show you just how bad it can get in a minute. Let's just paint a picture. This is a CME, and here's Earth. But that's not the biggest CMEs. Look at this. Yeah, that's the sun. Earth would be a little dot like that. Unfortunately, we're 93 million miles from this reactor, but you hope that stuff misses you. So here's major solar flares kicking out. Look at that. The sun is huge. What it kicks out is enormous. I mean, look at Earth by comparison. Earth is tiny, just a dot. We're a tot. So we definitely have a lot to be concerned with. Oh yeah, we have international tensions too right now. So just bear that in mind. Bear that in mind that the sun is cranking up. So what can it do to us? Well, let me go back up to another chart here, show you what I'm concerned about, and I'm going to show you some presentations on this. Oh, you know, I really should have blown this up. My bad. All right. This site here is old. This number I used in this chart since 2016, maybe 2015. We produce 2,000 metric tons of spent fuel per year, so we're over 80,000 now. It's said that we have in the history, actually now we're at 83,000. I can show you that later. But the problem is these fuel rods are coated with a zircalloy. It's a zirconium alloy, known as zircalloy, and it burns on contact with air. Now, I've had an engineer get furious at me for presenting this. I mean, he got so furious. He'd been a friend of mine for decades. He's not spoken with me since. "Oh, Greg, that does not happen. It cannot happen. I got this fuel rod material on my shelf in my bookcase. It can't burn." Well, that's because it's not hot. It's the hot stuff that burns. And furthermore, I've got proof. I have lab results, and you're going to be surprised with me. I've got the test results from the Sandia National Laboratories of these fuel rods burning. So you're going to see that in a little bit. But hey, they're under 20 foot of water, but this water evaporates at about 160 gallons a minute. So you got to be able to pump water to it continuously. The problem is that the power grid goes down, your pumps fail eventually. Yeah, your electric pumps won't have power unless you get, but they have the backup generators. But that's good only as long as the diesel fuel lasts. The diesel fuel, yeah, you got to have diesel fuel. But oh, great, we'll just truck it in. Well, the problem is you have to pump the diesel fuel. You have to pump the fuel that runs the trucks. The trucks will require supply chain, spare parts to operate. All that starts breaking down when the grid goes down. Eventually, you've got no trucks rolling, no power, no resupply of fuel, unless you take dramatic measures ahead of time to ensure that that's going to be supplied. Those measures are only starting to be thought about now by emergency management associations due to groups like ours bringing these things up. So we have to protect the grid because look at this, my friends. If these hot rods evaporate all the water rate, they're going to burn, and all this fuel is going to go up in the air as smoke. Hey, I'm sitting 25 miles, 26 miles away from this, over 1,600 metric tons. So I did a little math, and this time, and again, this was 4 years ago. I calculated this stuff over 4 years ago. We had it was estimated about 14,600 nuclear warheads, and if you assumed about 40 pounds of fuel per warhead, and then you ran that against the spent fuel rod weight, divided it, you came out that, hey, the spent fuel rods by themselves, just the spent fuel rods outside the power plants, not the reactors. I'm not talking about the reactors. These spent fuel rods have 280 times more radioactive material than all the warheads on Earth. Everybody worries about the radiation from a nuclear war. Of course, sometimes when the industry wants to talk about the spent fuel rods, you go, well, if you put them all together, it's only a football field 10 yards deep. Well, these warheads would be a lot less than that. I mean, you know, a foot deep maybe. But the radiation they can produce is off the charts, as everyone knows. So when you're looking at just think about what the reactors from Fukushima, Chernobyl, we've had to worry about. And we are able, they were able to concrete seal Chernobyl, and Fukushima, we've been pumping water on it ever since, although it's burning down into the water table. So there's a lot of problems with that one at Fukushima, those 3 reactors there. So those are being worked actively because we have a infrastructure to work them. When the whole grid goes down, you ain't got no infrastructure. You got no way to deal with these things. So yeah, this is bad. What we've got to do is find ways to repurpose this fuel, fight the industry, because the industry don't want you to reuse the fuel because they want to sell new fuel to you all the time. So we got to force the industry to reprocess fuel, and we got a dry casket and store it somewhere. We had Yucca Mountain set up to take that. So these are things we're going to have to look at. So let me go to another chart here. Let me break out of this. I don't kill my computer here. There we go. Maybe I should show you the solar charts again here with this thing blowing up. Just go through it real quick. Sorry, I'm bad for not doing this earlier. Yeah, see Earth here? Look at that. Yeah, this is serious business. Oh yeah, we got some other serious business in the world too. Man-made EMP. Gotta worry about that too. I talked about that in other reports. You may have heard me say, hey, I have flown balloons with rockets. Oh yeah, this is my programs. These are things I did. That's me 20 years ago. That's one of my vehicles. That's me on the end of the boat down there. That's not the topic tonight, so I'm not going to any further point. You hear me say, I did it. Yeah, that's what I did. I did launch stuff that we could do the kind of flights I'm talking about here. So I'm not kidding on that, my friends. So let's look here. Hang on, let me blow this up. Give me a second. Bam. This is Browns Ferry Nuclear Power Plant, which is just down the road from me. 26 miles, over probably over 17 or 1800 tons of fuel. That's the boiling water reactor. When they started putting it in, hey, we had a tornado nearly took it out. And back in 2011, April 27th, the day after my worms arrived, my worm farm. All right, so this is your fuel rod pool. It's under 20 foot of water, but that water will evaporate off when you can't pump more water into it. At 160 gallons per minute, it will go. These are the pellets that fit inside the fuel rods. They coat these fuel rods with Zircalloy because steel gets brittle with all the radiation and fall apart. It's not strong, can't keep the strength and won't hold the rods. And this is a fuel rod assembly. So what they do is they have this reactor. Everybody worries about the reactor, but the reactor is in a big containment building. It only has so many fuel rods. This spent fuel rod pool just has a sheet metal roof over it and has way more fuel in it than what's in here. Let's see, this is where you actively normally worry about a meltdown, but with a power grid outage, you got to worry about this, which you don't normally have to worry about. This is with some other kind of catastrophe. But you could shock this reactor full of boron and at least stop the nuclear reaction, although the fuel is still hot. And we'll probably melt to China, the China syndrome scenario. I won't go all the way to China, but it could definitely get down to the water table and make a mess. So, yeah, see what happens with these over your spent fuel rods when things go bad. Yeah, that sheet metal roof blows right off. And that stuff starts burning, that's what's going to happen. Your roof's gone. Because that roof, it will burn too. There you go. So that's your protection overhead. That's what's protecting you from what's in all these power plants across the United States. That's some of the zones shown for evacuation. But that's under the idea that you have a problem with the reactor and we'd be able to contain it. This is not a scenario of a multi-year grid down. This is the spent fuel rod capacity of the pools. This is how much we're supposed to be able to take. Spent fuel rod pools. And so this chart shows, you know, some of our vulnerabilities. Oh yeah, here's the backup generators. So kind of skipping around here. This is why I worry about the grid going down. Yeah, if I didn't have to worry about these things, I too could say, oh, well, gee, you know, I can go off grid and I can survive. I don't need power. But I can't survive 280 times the radiation of a full-scale nuclear war getting loose. So y'all hear me talk about a lot of the things that's in these charts from time to time. The Chung Chung Gang, that wouldn't have put this in here. Some of the things I've done. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is switch over here and show you some reports. And so, Greg, they won't burn. You know, yeah, I've heard that. I'm going to show you otherwise right here. This is the paper. I downloaded it as a PDF on by the NRC, talking about the test and test setup. This paper is kind of devoid of pictures beyond the setup. They don't show you pictures of post-test, although they show the depiction of the propagation you know, from a fire in the center out to the other fuel elements transversely. I'll show you that. They're not showing you the end pictures in this report because they're trying to be nominal. All tests for both phase 1 and phase 2 were successfully completed with valuable experimental data generated. The experimental data was used to validate severe accidental codes. Yeah, quite severe indeed. And the core analysis showed the results of highly sensitive to oxidation kinetics and the transition from pre to post breakaway. Okay, so there's a lot of terminology here. We don't need to go into all that, but let me show you the pictures so you can understand the engineering ease. This picture is worth 1,000 words and can come across in any language. So suffice it to say, they, 2005, demonstrated zirconium fires in near prototypical spent fuel. I'll say they didn't actually want to use actual radioactive fuel, setting it on fire and put all that stuff in the atmosphere. So they just they simulated the heat that the rods, fuel pellets would cause in a fuel rod, and when they took the air away, they burned. 2 full-scale ignition tests completed. Clad ballooning and nitrogen depletion observed. Sounds very, oh, okay, we had this test, we had these observations, and everything was good because it matched our model. But wait till I show you what this looks like. Whole pull cask analysis, implications for fuel storage. Well, a whole lot in the sand what that means in here. So trying not to be too, see, scientists and engineers try not to be too exciting with the things they write. They don't go, oh my God, the sky's falling. They go, well, our analysis indicates that this can be somewhat energetic, that this is interesting, and merits further examination. Well, that would be a very inflammatory statement. So I know I've spent decades writing these reports, okay, for different things, you know, failure analysis. That's what I do for a living, by the way. I'm doing system safety on avionics, the space launch system. I've done it on other vehicles. I've even done a little bit with SpaceX systems, okay? So phase 1, here's what they show their test set up. It shows how where they're measuring. So this good stuff here. All right. Their ignition test and what they looked at. Oh, but now here's where you can start to see what it really meant. What it really starts looking like, okay? See, this is when the fire starts, and this is how it propagates. Going transversely. And these are different depths. This is probably at the very bottom, the very top. So, yeah, at the very bottom, that's where they showed earlier we're looking. where they had the windows in the bottom. So they started their heat source here. The idea is the water is evaporating down from the top. How far is it going to propagate? And this is the propagation over time. You see, it pretty much consumes everything. And the pictures are going to validate. Here's the individual cells. That's the ballooning they talk about, which means they're rupturing. That's what it means by the ballooning. Ballooning likely between Ziegler, blah, 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 what the depths are, where it's going to pop, basically. That's where your gas escapes. That's where the fuel in the center vaporizes. And they do talk about that in some of these reports, the vaporization of the fuel itself. And the reports indicate that it would be high releases. Okay, you're supposed to left your view rods. Here they are getting hot. And there it is. Bye-bye. Bye-bye fuel rods. Look at that. Yeah. This was the test setup. Bam. That's your results. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah, it's all dust. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. This is one thing you don't want to rust. And what they say, significant depletion of nitrogen during the initial phase of ignition. Sounds normal. Nitrogen. But here's the one, the sub-bullet. More energetic burn than previously modeled. Severe thermal temperature caused all pressurized fuel pins to bloom. All. They all blew up. That's what it says. And as you can plainly see, they all were consumed by fire. And my friend got mad and swore to me that this cannot happen. No, it won't happen. It'll never happen. That ain't gonna happen. Bah, 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 bah. And he worked in the nuclear industry for over 20 years as an engineer. Ha 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 ha. Don't mess with me. I dig. I find data. Not only that, there's a whole community of people who are worried about this stuff. So this is somber. It's real. The sun is going back into cycle number 25. Even if it is weaker than cycle 24, it's still a maximum. Maybe a weaker maximum, but we're already getting solar flares going, and they're really coming out. Boom, boom, boom. This is starting off with a bang. The fact that it's starting off with a bang means McIntosh's study just might be right. Even if it's not right, we've got a lot to be concerned about. But if it is right, holy smoke, brace yourselves. Brace yourselves. I'm going to have to do a nuclear bug out video. I did a bug out video. I will do a nuclear bug out video. We'll see. Because we've got to worry about these power plants. What do you do? How do you survive? How do you take care of yourselves? We may have to worry about a WAR. And that going nuke. We may have to worry about these plants from a CME or from an EMP in case we do have a war. Tensions internationally extremely high right now. Tensions domestically extremely high. So, guys, 2020 has been a you-know-what burger year. 2021 doesn't show us any promise of being any better. And on in through the next solar maximum through cycle 25, there's plenty that you need to keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel now more than ever. This is the time that you got to really think about prepping and bugging out. Where to go, how to go. Because these things, think about it. We got radiation over here from, you show these little zones around these plants. That's where the heavier stuff will fall out. We had cesium, radioactive cesium coming here from Fukushima in low levels, but especially after the events took place there. March 11th of, what year was that? That brought stuff here to the United States, low levels, some of it swept around the world. It was just in 3 reactors. What happens when you have like 100 reactors going off in the United States alone? We're 200 worldwide. How do you survive it? You don't if you don't plan accordingly. If you don't prep accordingly, you may not. But there are things that we can do. I just hope we're not too late. We need to get our grid hardened. These spent fuel rod pulls need to be eliminated. That stuff needs to be. Hey, guys in Nevada, you ain't got many people in Nevada. You will be better off with this stuff buried in your mountain, in your backyard, than you will be if it burns off east of you and everything's down with us. It's going to come back around. It will come back around. So you may not understand it, but you would be better off if this stuff was buried in your own backyard and you would have all go in the atmosphere. So maybe you think you're being safe. I don't think so. But maybe if that's not the answer, we got to find something. We've got to deal with these fuel rods. A lot of it can be repurposed. I mean, you can reprocess the stuff. That needs to happen. And whatever we can do to dry cast them, to process them, to run them, and to store them in a long-term storage facility. It was never meant when we started this program of Atoms for Peace to have all these fuel rods sitting around in these pools all over the country. That was not envisioned. It was thought we would take care of them. But here we are decades later, and that's what we got. It's untenable. That and the fact that the powers that be seem to not want to do anything with our power grid to get it hardened, these are unconscionable. This is malfeasance. And negligence, and I would consider it criminal negligence, because they know better, and they're papering this stuff over, they're sweeping it under the rug, and so that they don't have to do anything about it. But the experts I know, and I have quite a few experts in the teams I work with, in the Secure the Grid organizations, know darn well these threats are real. And the industry is doing everything they can. That you know, we get engineers and scientists out explaining this stuff. They come out with lawyers and business people with counterpoints that run up the hill with big lobbyists, trying to say, oh no, it's not this. Well, guess what? The real experts are on our side. So this is why we need to be concerned. I always say, pray and hope for the best and prepare for the worst. I hope these things don't come to pass, but they can. And it could be any time. It really could be anything. We're having solar flares coming at us right now. Understand one's supposed to come around CME maybe Friday. I don't think it would be strong enough quite to do this, but no, I'm anticipating that. But we're on a buildup. Watch out, brace yourselves, get ready. And I will be coming out sometime in the not too distant future with a nuclear bug out video. Stay tuned. So I know you watch it this long, just say, Greg, I will be watching for your nuclear bug out video. Anyway, we're coming up the holiday season. We got a big Christmas star coming up on the 21st. Let's hope it's a harbinger of good things. You know, Paul Begley is telling us that it may not be. So is Stacy Zavicki. Interesting. Her vision was an MP sometime thereafter, if we don't repent. So, holy smoke, guys. Holy smoke, we're getting in very interesting times. Just get ready. But you know what? I do have hope. The proof that I've got hope, I spent a bunch of money to buy an air conditioning unit, put on top of a trailer to grow microgreens in. All that requires a power grid to work. And that won't be in place for, you know, a few weeks or months from now. So I'm banking some money on the hopes that the power grid will be here. So I'm not all doom and gloom. I do plan for the best, but I also prepare for the worst. It could happen. I just don't know when. You have to live your life. You have to go on every day planning as you normally would, with the backup of planning in case the bad happens. Okay? All right. Enough said. Wish everybody the best. Let's hope and pray these things don't come to pass. Sooner or later, the sun's going to do it. Sooner or later, the sun's going to. That's why we got to get our power grid hardened. You see that placard back there? And we'll have more coming up on that in the not too distant future. Let's get this grid hardened. By the way, join my Freedom Restoration Foundation. You can find us on Facebook. Email me to halfispace@aol.com. I got a new email coming out really soon because I've just got another URL yeah, URL, domain name reserved. We're starting to build our websites now, and I paid for the WordPress sites, and I've also paid for the tools to build it with. I got a lady engaged, and she's starting to build our websites right now, so it's all coming. Also, I've got the tribe spreadsheet I'm working. You're going to be hearing from us. So if you want to join our tribe family, email me at same address, half-space@AOL.com, and put the word tribe in the subject line, put the word freedom in the subject line if you want to join the Freedom Restoration Foundation. And actually, we're going to use the Freedom Restoration Organization as an umbrella to help coordinate the tribes. But you know, how the tribes participate in that, it will be up to them. Every tribe is going to be individual, and how they operate will be of their own accord for the most part. So we're just wanting to facilitate and enable these groups to form. That's our objective in that. But we're also going to have activist cells, groups, chapters, whatever you want to call them. So my friends, just remember, well, Stacy Savicki says repent if you don't want things to go bad after the 21st. I'm sure Paul Begley would agree with that. But my friends, yeah, you can get ready every way you can and do pray. Absolutely. I believe in it. If you don't believe in it, meditate. At least go ahead and do something good in the world. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching.